I really appreciate that. I think you've amplified a vision that we can all agree on when it comes to California. When it comes to the gubernatorial race, what do you see as the goal for this? Like, what would you want to kind of bring about for the national party? And also, again, I guess this is a two-part question. What do you think is the immediate challenge to how we can actually deal with the Democrats and Republicans? What can we amplify to really promote our message?
Excellent. So I think one of the primary things that we should be focusing on in this upcoming election is kind of, again, as I was saying, bringing people back to California mentally, getting people to start thinking about these issues that face Californians. Because unfortunately, especially given last year's election, even for Californians, California has become kind of secondary in importance. So what we need to do is highlight issues that are specific to California or that California is going to need to solve on its own. Issues like water resources, which as we enter into yet another drought year, we find ourselves coping with the fact that explosive growth has happened in the last few decades in California. Infrastructure development has not been able to keep up. Our resource management is unable to be done in a rational and in a rational and thoughtful manner. Instead, it simply becomes another one of these battles between Team Red and Team Blue. And we never end up solving the problem. We simply end up arguing about it. Here in Northern California, one of the biggest things is PG&E. No matter what your feelings are about US politics, the United States is not going to fix PG&E. It relies on us to be paying attention. It relies on us to thoughtfully consider ways that we can approach this problem. Specifically, I and the California National Party believe that PG&E has in essence has become is exactly a state-supported monopoly that really doesn't need to pay attention to the safety or needs of its consumers, and one that the Democratic Party is not going to do much about, considering 75% of the legislature in California are Democrats who take money from PG&E. We're going to have to start considering how do we break out of that system. And so I think the biggest message we're going to have is, again, getting people to focus on these California-centric attitudes. Now, of course, this is going to tie into global politics. Climate change is a global issue. And again, related to water, what we've all seen this winter and that we've seen previous winters is the fact that the snowpack is starting to disappear. No snowpack, no water that's able to stretch out into July, into August, into September, keeping us alive. So these are the kind of things that we need to look at in a nonpartisan manner, not as a battle between parties, but as a dialogue between Californians, attempting to determine what it is we need and how best we can achieve it. In terms of taking on Democrats and Republicans, I think that this is ultimately what I was just speaking about is the most important message that we can have, that the Democrats and Republicans are not problem solvers. They are fundamentally fighting a small part of a battle taking place 3,000 miles away. And what we need to do is point out to the California people that the Republican Party in California is essentially poison, is a non-starter at this point. Many Californians have turned their backs on the Republican Party, even those who have been members of it for a long time, because they've seen it can no longer effectively represent California values. The Democrats, on the other hand, have continued to sort of wave the alarm of the boogeyman of the Republican Party to enable themselves to, in essence, have unchallenged authority in California. But we need to recognize, regardless of what we may think Democrats are doing at the federal level, the Democratic Party in California is not our friend. They have had all 8 executive statewide offices for a decade. They have a supermajority in both houses of the legislature. We can no longer blame Republicans for the problems of California when the Democrats have, in essence, completely coalesced a one-party state in Sacramento. What we need to see is they are continuing to use the boogeyman of the Republican Party at the federal level to allow their unchallenged authority here. We in California need to start saying, look, at the federal level, vote for all the Democrats or all the Republicans you want. But here in California, we need to start voting for Californians. We need to start thinking about California problems. We need to start thinking about California solutions and pointing out that both the Democrats and Republicans, for very different reasons, but the consequences are ultimately the same, have been unable to solve these problems and are going to continue to be unable to solve these problems as long as they continue to think of California as nothing more than an important chess piece on the federal board.